hear you.
Excellent. Well, thanks. I am going to just introduce this topic and Ashland's work on revamping our CWPP, and then Alison Lerch is going to take it from there. Ashland started long ago in the CWPP process back in 2004, just after passage of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. Our local Forest Service unit came to the city and said, hey, we'd really like to implement this big project in the city's watershed, which comes through town and directly abuts it and on up the slope. And the city said, wow, that's really great, but we'd like to do something different. And so the Healthy Forest Restoration Act provided the means for the community, not just the city government, but the community stakeholders to come to the table, craft a CWPP, which was a pretty new thing at the time, and offer an alternative treatment method on federal land. And talking to some folks who have studied CWPPs, not many CWPPs have done that for that specific reason, although many now have priorities that lap over onto federal land or maybe even originate on federal land and involve their communities as well. So the Ashland CWPP now is pretty outdated, which is one of the biggest reasons that we're updating it. But it has been incredibly useful. The project that came out of that proposal for federal land in the city's watershed, and the bottom part of the watershed is included in the WUI as well, has been implemented. We're about 3/4 done. We just got a funding award the other day from the Joint Chiefs program for the Department of Agriculture, so we're well on the way to being done with a 7,600-acre footprint. But what we ended up leaving behind in the city's CWPP is that really genuine, engaged community part. The community was engaged around the watershed, but we didn't do the WUI piece in a true collaborative fashion. We had a lot going on at the time with grants. We eventually moved to the Firewise Communities USA program, and that's been very successful as well, but that is not in our CWPP. So we have our work cut out for us, and we're very lucky to have so many talented colleagues moving ahead and on the cutting edge, and we're following just behind them on the bleeding edge and learning all these very useful lessons as we're putting together our CWPP outline. And we've got a core group right now. The city actually agreed to a commission on the topic of wildfire. Started as a Firewise Communities Commission. Now they're called the Wildfire Mitigation Commission, a group of volunteer citizens, and we're mustering our stakeholder group as we speak. And Alison is going to talk a little bit more about the nuts and the bolts of where we're going with that.
Thanks, Chris. So, like Chris said, we're in the process of updating our CWPP. And our current outline takes the 3 goals of the cohesive strategy, and really those 3 goals are our 3 main sections, in addition to some history and, of course, a risk assessment. But in addition, we're also including chapters about vulnerable populations and then post-fire recovery. And those are things that our county fire plans, the Jackson County and Josephine County fire plans that are being updated in our area right now, have also touched on at least the vulnerable populations part. So we're excited to continue and expand that information for us here in Ashland. But we're basically knee-deep in our community engagement portion right now. We just completed a community engagement study with a local organization called the Center for Social Ecology and Public Policy. And their staff went around for about 4 months and made personal contact with over 400 residents and basically asked them questions in a very relaxed type of a situation, you know, just maybe in a coffee shop or in their business or something like that, and really just got to the core of the city of Ashland and our citizens' perception of fire and the fire plan. So some of the questions that were asked were, are you aware of the wildfire risk in Ashland? What are you doing to address this risk? Do you feel you have access to the resources needed to help be better fire-wise and fire-safe? Also, along the lines of communication, asking the citizens what are the most effective ways to communicate, as in the fire department communicating to them and us communicating through this planning process. And in the end, we got, the report showed us that about 2/3 of the people contacted were aware of fire risks and the recent fire history in the region, and about some of the activities that they should be taking to be fire safe. So we thought that was definitely a good thing. And then about half of those people actually reported, you know, doing activities to report in their readiness. Now that's not just maybe defensible space around people's houses, but we have a very active CERT program in Ashland too, so talking about evacuation and being prepared and things like that. So I did share this report on our Podio space and added it as a document under the CWPP COP. So it is there if you would like to read it, or of course, please send us an email or let us know in the chat, and we would love to send it to you. So our next step is taking this report and sort of filling in the gaps. We have been working with the Ashland Chamber of Commerce Board, and they are willing to create a 4 to 5 person fire plan task force. And this includes realtors and people from the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and other important key stakeholders in our community. And so we're going to take this task force and we're going to add additional stakeholders from the community and create our Community Wildfire Protection Plan Advisory Committee. And so that's really where we're at right now. And as Chris said, we are very grateful of our partners in this network that have created some incredible plans that we are happy to have and use as a framework for our plan as we update it in the near future.
Great. Thank you. Any questions?